So with that brief update on the Attracting New Residents work, my job now is to pivot our discussion and pivot our agenda into a panel of young people who will share their perspectives on what it means for our communities to be welcoming. This is critically important, both as we think about visitors and people seeing our communities for the first time, but also for newer or current residents who may be seeking their own place at the table. This theme around creating welcoming communities was something that came up over and over in the breakout groups at last year's Common Ground Forum. And in order to work towards welcoming communities, it'll take everyone to dig in and work towards this goal, which makes it a perfect topic for us to focus on today. This forum is a great place to advance grassroots initiatives that require collective action, and there's a place for all of us to help make our communities more welcoming. To introduce this topic a little bit more fully before I have a chance to introduce our panelists today, and to frame this for us, we have a short video to share that Nicky Hylton-Patterson of the Adirondack Diversity Initiative pre-recorded for us. Doug, are you able to cue that up and share that at this time? Doug, I'm not getting audio on that video. And it looks like others are not either. So if that isn't a fixable problem right now, Doug, can you stop Nicky's video? And I would suggest that maybe we skip it and share it on the website. Oh, Lexi is saying, Doug, you just have to unmute yourself in order to share the sound from the video. Thanks for the crowdsourced tech support, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicky Hylton-Patterson, and I'm the director for the Adirondack Diversity Initiative. Here, we're located in Saranac Lake in the beautiful Adirondacks. And I'm here today to speak a little bit about welcoming and belonging, okay? And so at the Adirondack Diversity Initiative, our mission is to ensure or to make the Adirondacks more welcoming and inclusive for all New Yorkers and its visitors. Here's the challenge. We believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion is only a bridge to belonging. And when people feel that they belong, this is where welcoming works. This is where we operationalize welcome, and people can find true welcome. At ADI, we really believe that belonging, a sense of belonging, cultivating a sense of belonging for all residents is the key to making people feel that they are welcome, to sustaining that feeling of welcome in the community here in the Adirondacks. Now, for example, why welcoming? Why belonging? Belonging is sort of loosely defined as it involves more than simply being acquainted with other people, places, customs, and norms. It's centered around gaining acceptance, right? Gaining acceptance and attention and support for who you are and all of your differences. It's celebrated, it's welcome, it's reinforced, and it's sustained. For me, an example I give is there is a wines and spirits, a liquor store on Main Street in Saranac Lake. And so I am Jamaican by birth and ethnicity. And I use the Jamaican rum. It's a Ray and Nephew white overproof rum in my baking, my drinks, and so on. It's even used a lot of times in our spiritual worship. And I use that. It's a staple in almost every Jamaican home. And I went to the liquor store twice, right? And each time they ordered a huge bottle for me. And that was wonderful. But the third time when I went there, the guy walked me over to the shelf and showed me that they had stocked 12 bottles of my drink. And I said to him, wow, does anybody else drink this? Does anybody else order it? He said, no, but because you are now part of our community, we're gonna make sure that you have what you need. That is belonging. I was seen, I was heard, I was believed, and I was supported and provided for in a way that he could do it. And so this is just a small example of what belonging looks like. What does belonging also look like? Belonging means that when you're invited to the table as a diverse or marginalized or minoritized voice, you're not just at the table, but your ideas, your presence is centered in decision making. And so those are some of the ways in which you can enhance or create a sense of belonging for diverse visitors or people you want to attract and sustain here. It is critical, and the research data shows that where there is belonging, there is sustainability. Where there's belonging, people thrive. Where there's belonging, people stay. And that's what we want. The next panel will feature a group of vibrant people who are talking about how they, in the years they've lived here, or when they returned to their homes in the Adirondacks, how they've accessed belonging and what welcoming looks like to them. So what we want to do is to take those snippets, take those strategies, take those experiences, those ideas, and multiply them, operationalize them so that we can use them to attract, and when we do attract new visitors and residents, the community, to sustain them by making this region more welcoming and inclusive place for all.
That's such a great introduction and frame for us, and we're really grateful to Nicky for recording that message to share with us and kick this discussion off. So we're really grateful and lucky to have 5 voices to speak to what this looks like. We recognize that welcoming and belonging can look very different depending on where you are in life and who you are in life. And so we have 5 perspectives on this set of questions today. Some of these individuals grew up in or near the Adirondacks, others chose to come here to go to school and have stayed. Some have come back, some haven't come back yet. And so we're really eager to hear all of these perspectives. I'm not going to try to tell their stories because that's what we've asked them to do here today. So I want to thank all of our panelists for making the time to join us today. We have Stephanie Backus, Ayla Thompson, Tori Vazquez, Frannie Newman, and Dan McConvey. And thank you all so much for making the time and sticking with the technical hurdles of the morning. And Steph, with that, I think I would kick it to you to start off our conversation.
Sure. So Steph Backus, I am the marketing manager at Gore Mountain down here in North Creek. I am the story of leaving and coming back. I grew up a little bit north of here, but I have family that have been in the area for a very long time. And so I came back. I had been in Colorado for the last 8 years. I moved back here, to have my husband and I moved back here to plant roots, start a family, all of that. And I think coming back, I've had this deep rooted love for the Adirondacks for, basically my entire life. So getting back here was really important to me. And I really wanted to make that happen. In terms of, welcoming people and how that's so important, I think at this point, to push forward the Adirondacks, it's going to come down to a lot of new ideas and these young people coming in. And something that I've noticed is, there are people who are still not open to new ideas that may revert to, no, this is how we've always done it. This is how we should keep doing it. And, that's not helpful for anybody. So I think, especially in community organizations, just around the park, making sure that folks, get involved and put their new ideas out there in order to, just make us better and attract those new people, because that's, like we talked about, so crucial to the future of the Adirondacks. So it's, along those lines too, showing, I know something for me, I want to show how excited I am about the Adirondacks, especially when people visiting. I want to show how much I love it, because I feel that that's infectious. So, someone coming to visit, here at the mountain, for example, if I'm really happy telling someone about this, about the mountain, coming to visit, and they have a great time, then that rolls into them coming back to visit, and so on and so forth. So, being excited to be here and share the love for the Adirondacks, and having everyone be, open to any and all new ideas and seeing how things work and move us forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. for that set of ideas and sharing your experience. I love the idea of inviting new ideas to the table. Ayla, can I ask you to share some thoughts? And so Doug, if you can ask Ayla to unmute, please.
Okay, good morning. My name's Ayla Thompson. I grew up and live in Lake Placid, and I work as a pharmacist in Ticonderoga. I was actually born in Jamaica, but moved back here before kindergarten started to grow up around my mom's giant local family. I graduated from Lake Placid High School, then went to pharmacy school in Albany before deciding to come back to the area. Working at a community pharmacy, I get the opportunity to see generally the different kinds of people that are in or come to our area. On a daily basis, I'll encounter the year-round local residents, the part-time, generally summer people or snowbirds, and the people that may be first-time visitors or short-term visitors. I love living where I do, and I love to share it no matter which group of people we're talking about there. When I was thinking about what to share today, it really made me think of a common question I get asked all the time, which is different variations of, where are you from, or you must not be from around here. And I really don't mind this question at all, but it makes me think from a different perspective. I think some people may generally be curious, but others may maybe simply imply that I don't look like I could be from the Adirondacks. And I've lived here for a majority of my life. So it makes me think, how do other people that are living or visiting or considering or maybe not considering moving to the area feel if maybe they don't look or sound like they could be from around here? And with a lot of companies accommodating the work from home model, I think this may be the best opportunity to bring new people and life to the area. I know I get the comments along the lines of, the people here are so nice or so welcoming. And I love these comments because I really do feel it speaks to the community as a whole. And I hope that the community feel is enough to attract or help sway people that may have been here during the pandemic. And I think we're great at helping each other, but if we can listen to each other and accept each other, we can help the Adirondacks not only stay beautiful and safe, but also be more inclusive and welcoming to everyone, because I do think we all belong here.
Thank you so much, Ayla. It's very powerful and well said. Thanks. Doug, our next panelist is going to be Tori, Victoria Vazquez. And so Tori, I would invite you to share some thoughts.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say thanks for having me here. My name is Victoria, but you all can call me Tori. I am the new owner of Main Street Exchange here in Saranac Lake. And it is a wild journey that I'm on, taking over a store that has been in business for 15 years here in Saranac Lake. Being so young, it's been challenging, but it's been really fun. I think it wasn't as hard because I had been working here for a few years since I had been in college at Paul Smith's. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Paul Smith's because that's like how I became flourished in college and how I felt very accepted in the Adirondacks, because when you go to college, they have all the welcoming people and you have fun and you learn about the area. And to me, that's how I kind of fell in love with not just the people, but the area itself. And I think that the Adirondacks is a very magical place in lots of aspects. So while I was in college, I had been in a couple of clubs, and something that I noticed that I really wanted to do was to be a part of the welcoming, I call them the welcoming committee. It's just like a group of students and faculty that help the incoming students feel very welcome and supported, so they will then want to stay in the area after they graduate or leave school for whatever reason. And that was one of my favorite experiences ever, honestly, because I got to really be a part of the freshmen's experience. So that really helped me, and I think I helped other people want to stay in the area. And actually I had some of the students who I helped in my time doing the peer leader, that's what my official title was, they actually came back to the area, and they want to live and work here. But unfortunately, the housing situation is not allowing more people to come in, and also like the kinds of jobs that they wish that they could have, that they would be able to use their major in, are also not available at this time. So I think that having housing and jobs available for the people who actually would love to be here and have fallen in love with the area, and for people who have moved away but can't come back because of the issues that I said above, that's really unfortunate. But yeah, I think that working on those, and also things to do in smaller towns, like in Saranac Lake, it's a fairly large town compared to some of the other towns in the Adirondacks. And so we have events, we have different like art walks and art things, which is a big part of our community. But in smaller towns, they may not have these opportunities to keep younger people in the area, which is very important. So yeah, those are my opinions.
Thank you so much, Tori. Yeah, we have a big charge dealing with all of the themes that touch on welcoming. So thank you for calling them out. And I learned something new about Paul Smith's as well. So thanks. Frannie Newman is going to be our next speaker. So Frannie.
Hi, my name is Frannie, and I am the story of the person that has lived here forever. I grew up in Lake Clear and then moved out to Vermontville, but I've gone to Saranac Lake High School and their Central School District forever. I am currently a rising sophomore at Middlebury College, and I have loved it. But going away to a predominantly white institute has definitely been a little bit eye-opening as far as what belonging could look like in town, because even at a school that is almost entirely white, and groups have to be brought in from cities and posse groups and whatnot, it still feels so incredibly accepting and supported, and the communities there are just so overwhelmingly welcoming. And kind of taking a step back and looking at the way that it feels at home, having grown up in it, I didn't notice a lot of it, or a lot of just kind of not being accepted relatively, as I was coming up through it, just because it felt very normal. And if you're not exposed to anything else, then there doesn't seem to be a huge need to fix it. But having discussions with genuinely my only other friend of color in the area as we were growing up, we kind of both hit a peak during graduation where we realized, I guess, how much we felt could be talked about and could be changed. And it was a lot of long conversations with each other at night, just kind of expressing what it was like growing up in a family that had a parent who is not from the area and who is just of a completely different race, and what it felt like being here. And going to school at Middlebury and getting to talk to other students there, it is like a very common theme. It's not just Saranac Lake that has difficulties kind of, I guess, getting to embrace families of color. It's been a theme that's common with everyone except for all of the city friends. And so I was able to talk about it last year during graduation. And I know since then, the school district has done a really, really wonderful job at least trying to forward their movement and getting kids to talk about it and gaining acceptance from that younger age and just really working on it. But I think there is obviously still a lot to be done, and welcoming communities and whatnot is a project I've been working on this summer over at Blue Mountain Lake at the Adirondack Experience. And so we're working on figuring out ways to market towards communities of color that are from surrounding cities, just because the Adirondacks sort of has developed a stigma of just being a very white area. And a lot of the girls over there who are in the group with me and that we've been talking about it with, them coming to the Adirondacks has been a completely eye-opening experience for me as well. Just getting to see what the communities here look like from an outsider's perspective, and just knowing that when we go grocery shopping in a group that they don't feel welcome because there's stares and people are whispering and just things are happening because they stand out so much in the general community that's here. And it's been nice to get to speak with someone who has no experience with the area to kind of see really what it's like to come into it. But they've all been really, really wonderful at kind of helping me develop my own thoughts as to what or where the region could go and how to get there. And so a big focus that we've been talking about, both for the museum and for just people in town, is just really making sure that to kind of foster this sense of belonging and community, that you're taking the time out of your day to educate yourselves and not relying completely on the very, very small communities of color in the area, just because there is a lot that is out there and it's very both draining and othering to have to continuously be asked the same questions over and over again, when a lot of racial discussions and whatnot can be talked about in a much broader sense. I know the school, my Middlebury does a really wonderful job. They do like training videos that are available to the public and just steps forward for self-education, because it's just going to be a lot of kind of unteaching old habits that are in the area, as well as like teaching younger generations new habits. And I think, I guess that would be the best way that I could think to support a welcoming community here, is just making sure that from the individual level, we're doing all that we can and not placing responsibility on people that have already given a lot of their time and effort towards the movement. But.
Thank you, Frannie, for that. And I see a comment in the chat from Caitlin Wargo saying that your graduation speech last year brought her to tears. And I think Caitlin speaks for many of us, so we will share a link to that recording as well as an additional resource for people to gain access to.
Thank you.
And our last panelist is Dan McConvey. So Dan, please bring it home.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to all the panelists really for sharing. The Zoom world is its own way, but also it's vulnerable to kind of open up in some ways around this. My name's Dan. I grew up in Wilmington. Similar to Ayla, I moved in around, like I was in second grade. My family's from Buffalo originally, and we had around the last pandemic, back in the 20s, bought land up in this area and built a house, partially also related to tuberculosis. And that had been the second home that had been in the family. And then in the 90s, it was too much to have two houses. And we moved into the area and settled in Wilmington as newcomers. So I got to experience this second grade feeling of trying to fit in, thrown into everything in Wilmington. Wilmington is a delightful little community and I loved it, but I mean, it was working within there, and also kind of within that, realizing that I was one of the few queer kids that I knew of in the area. I had had a couple older kids come out before me and had a really rough time, and kind of watched that and learned kind of what my experience could be, watched teachers kind of get pushed out of the area. And just kind of, I think that in some ways, living in a small town, especially in any kind of marginalized identity, does make you acutely aware of the social dynamics and people. I don't want to speak for everyone within that, but that was something that I became pretty attuned to for my own safety, and just trying to understand what kind of person the area wanted me to be, or what would be fitting in. And also I learned a lot about class. Like my family, when my mom was working as a server, I then entered the restaurant world of Lake Placid and the service industry in general, where I got to learn quite a bit about, I had friends from Peru, I had friends from Kazakhstan, I had friends from Serbia. I had a lot of experiences of these friendships, but also then learning about the racism that they were experiencing within a town that was welcoming to its tourists. And I think for me, that's been something that I've thought a lot about like my own experience as a queer person. I now live down in New York City. I feel like working, interchanging with New York City tourists for a long time made living in New York City a little bit easier for me. In general, I think that my take on the Adirondacks, it's been this place I've loved. I grew up playing in the woods all the time, playing bumper canoes, which is not a real thing, but it's really just bumping canoes in front of the town beach. And having like a really different experience than when I went to college, realizing that the Adirondacks had been an incredibly unique, wonderful place to grow up. And I think that that was always coupled with this place is not for me. And I think that that juxtaposition is something that I've really thought about and tried to expand into who is this place welcoming for? How can we expand that table? I mean, Lake Placid's got one of the most radical abolitionists in American history, John Brown. I mean, where are we, like, how could we lean into that history of the Adirondacks has had some real contentious people in American history, but why is it that BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, and people of color don't feel as welcomed within this region? Why isn't there a huge queer contingent of people in the area? And I think that for me, that's been something that the welcoming, I think the video also touched on this sense of belonging and what we could do to expand that and it be a cultural, but I think it's a real intentionality that we have in terms of the systems, the institutions we have really are these communities, the school systems. I know my mom working in the school, like she just created a safe space for a lot of people just through being part of a queer family in some ways. And I think that that's something that resonates with me in terms of what small towns across the Adirondack region can do to really expand that. What makes it welcoming? How do we keep it welcoming? How do we make it welcoming for who? And how are we intentional when we realize it isn't welcoming for everyone? Who's not here right now? Who's not coming to the area? And how do we expand that? It's kind of my 2 cents, I guess. And I guess to close out the panelists. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. I think that was more than 2 cents. That was worth a lot. And thank you, as Dan said, it is a big ask of you to share your stories and your thoughts about these, very challenging and personal questions. So I'm so grateful to all of you, and I'm sure I speak for all of the attendees today in saying that. I think Craig Leggett is going to share a few thoughts with us.
Sure, I'm here to wrap things up, so I want to thank all of our panelists. It's beautiful what you have brought to the table and have really enriched this this forum. That to keep it brief, Ayla, when you said to listen to each other because we all belong here, I think you really hit at the center of things, is that taking the time to really listen and breathe in a person's individuality, not to go for the general markers of who you are, where you're from, did you grow up here, all of those items. And Tori, good luck on jumping onto Main Street. Man, way to go, way to go. I went to Paul Smith's too, and one thing I discovered is that there were kids that were born in urban areas that came up to go to forestry school, and they just happened to be born in the wrong place. They settled right into the Adirondack experience on things. And that you're being on the welcoming committee and seeing everybody, it gave you new exposures. And I heard this theme through most all the speakers this morning here, to be able to put yourself into a place of where you are with other people. It broadens our horizons. And you also bring out that you came in as a bit of a transition, through Paul Smith. So it was sort of a safe way to get into a community and get your feet on the ground. Frannie, that getting the kids to talk about what's welcoming, and I love it, the unteaching the old habits and bringing up the new generation with the new habits. That's where we're at right now. And that segues into what Dan was saying there, of what can we do for belonging, and it needs to be intentional. So starting it in the schools and bringing it up as community discussions and having forums about this makes it all work. Dan, you touched a little bit on class distinction too. That was an interesting one, and love to pick up on that for more discussion as well, because we look at other kinds of distinctions, but on that class, that does happen here. So thank you all very much for taking your time and sharing your experiences with us. I'll turn it back over now to Zoe.